what we'll do is we'll start with a mass, and then that starts at, I believe it's 8 a.m. And then what I usually do is before the mass, I'll go get some coffee, I'll go to Costco and pick up some muffins, fruit, things like that for breakfast. And then St. Patrick's has allowed us to meet in their parish hall after mass, and we'll just get together, and we'll just everybody gets a chance to talk about what's going on and kind of where the good things that are going on, what are some of their challenges, and we just gotta have a little powwow.
Welcome to Stories from the Street. I'm Brian.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be interviewing Steve Barley, who's one of our regional leaders out in San Diego. And we're going to be talking to him about the importance of community and how to develop that in a specific area.
Give me joy in the morning.
Beth, community.
I love it.
You love
such
it.
An important part. It's so good. As we talk to team leaders all over the country, some are isolated and others have this blessing of multiple teams and multiple communities, or multiple teams and team leaders that all can work together. And I think our guest is a good example of that.
I think so too. And just out of curiosity, as you got involved with SPSE in Detroit, were you part of it as it was already grown and there were already team leaders in the area? Were you one of the first in Detroit and you got to see it explode? Where did you come into the process as the community developed there in Detroit?
Well, when I started, there was one team and the team leader was Steve Dawson. And so that was the team I started with.
We need to get him to be a verified team leader.
I know. But it was the only team. And but quickly others started jumping in and just started evangelizing and just it kind of grew. They'd come out with Steve a little bit and then they'd want to do something at their own event. And right now, the Detroit area has so many different teams and team leaders, and we all support each other. And it helps a lot because if you can't be there, there's always someone else you can pull to join you, or so it works out really good. And it's a great way to start new teams because there's always something going.
That's interesting. And this is before we had the BET, isn't it? So it's not like Adam there and led a training. It was just Steve going out. People went out with him, and they're like, "I can do this too, and I'm going to do this with or without Steve, and we're just going to get stuff started."
Right. It was like, this is cool. I can do this at this other event. And Steve's like, well, I can't be there. You just go. And he even just gave his stuff. Here, take my stuff. You do the event. You go. And that's kind of how it started. Very grassroots. And I think that's how it goes. There's a couple other areas. I was just in Phoenix, and we have a really good regional missionary there, Dave Tucker, and he has organized a number of different teams. And from north up in Scottsdale to Mesa to Phoenix, there are a number of people and they all help each other. I evangelized at a couple different places, met a bunch of different team leaders, and different groups were with us.
Yeah. Beth, who knows a lot about community is actually our guest today.
I know. I've talked with Steve. He's wonderful. It's great to have him on. I'm glad you were able to catch him.
Steve was actually one of the first people we spoke to in this apostolate when we first joined.
Yes, he was. I remember. I was trying to figure out all those great teams in San Diego.
We were all the things in San Diego, but also as we started developing an application, Steve was our lawyer, our go-to for SPSE that Steve referred us out to make sure that we were doing everything okay. We began a new onboarding process for team leaders.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and bring Steve on. Steve, thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure and my honor to be on this podcast interview with both you, Brian, and you, Beth.
Yes, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
See, as I mentioned, we spoke a lot at the beginning. I knew that you had always been a part of this apostolate, but I don't know the full story. How did you even begin getting involved with St. Paul Street evangelization?
I as I'm getting older, my memory is getting more and more faded. But I believe what happened was back in 2013, I heard about St. Paul Street evangelization. I don't know if I heard about it on EWTN or Catholic Answers or some media channel. Anyhow, so then I Googled St. Paul Street evangelization, and there was like a map that of the country, and I was looking for who the team leader was for or who the coordinator was for like California. And I was looking for San Diego, but I think there was just a St. Paul representative for California. And so I click on California, and lo and behold, James Stabile pops up as the coordinator for California. Well, James Stabile and I are good friends. Sadly, James passed away last fall suddenly. But James and I, we'd known each other for, I don't know, 12 years or something like that. We were involved in starting a Catholic radio station here in San Diego, and have worked on many other projects and ministries. James was the director of, he worked for Catholic Answers. He was, helped them out for many years. And anyhow, so I knew James. I was so startled to see James listen. And so I immediately called him on his mobile, and he was telling me about how he got involved with St. Paul. And we started going out. And then I think after I contacted St. Paul, and then I got to know Steve Dawson through that. And I'm from Michigan, grew up in the kind of the same area as Steve Dawson, and we both have a connection with Northwestern Michigan. And so just kind of got to know Steve Dawson as well over the years. And so this all started back in 2013.
So James he was a representative for California in general, but he just happened to be a good friend and close to you.
Yeah. It just happened that James, he was the listed representative for St. Paul Street Evangelization in California, and he was here in San Diego, and a good friend of mine. So, when I saw that, I kind of chuckled, and then I immediately called him.
That's perfect.
That is. And when you guys went out, was it just the two of you?
Yes. Initially it was just the two of us, me and James, and we went out, I don't know, for a long time. Where was the two of us? We would try to go to the heavy traffic areas. So out, here in Southern California, a great place to go where there's a lot of heavy traffic are by the piers. Ocean Beach Pier is a popular place where there's a lot of foot traffic. So we had gone there. Oceanside Pier, which is in North San Diego County, is another area. And so primarily we were going to those two areas, but we were doing other things as well. There's a really good Catholic school here called St. Joseph's Academy, and they're also in northern San Diego County, and very, very Orthodox, very good Catholic school. And anyhow, we've also presented at that school, presented at other Catholic schools, on St. Paul Street Evangelization. So we were doing a number of different things, but mainly we were going out to the pier areas and doing street evangelizations on Saturdays, from like 10 to 12. And so we probably did that for almost a full year before we really started developing, further teams in the San Diego area.
Yeah, Stephen, all your time on the streets, do you have a favorite story that you love to share? People ask me about favorite stories. I don't really have like a favorite story, so many, I can tell you like generalities that I enjoy. I enjoy, one thing, I think this is probably all over the place, but in Southern California, we have a lot of people. There's a lot of homeless in the San Diego area, and there's a lot of people that they're kind of down and out or look down and out. A lot of tattoos, things like that. And so a lot of these folks, they'll walk. They'll come up or approach or come by or near our stand. And what's sad is the human. My human instinct is like kind of like a little bit on guard. When these people come near. But what I found over the years is that some of these folks, that maybe you say you can't judge a book by its cover, but some of these folks are some of the most humble people, and so you'll have people that are all dressed up and fancy, and they won't give you the time of day, or they'll kind of smirk or whatever as they walk by you, but generally just not have anything to do with our table. But a lot of these folks that are that are homeless or, are covered in tattoos, and, a lot of them are much more, just kind of willing to discuss faith, spiritual things, God, than a lot of the, kind of more fancy people that walk by and, might have nothing to do with us. So that's, I wouldn't say there's any one particular story, but it's just something I've noticed, which really kind of blows my mind. And it just kind of tells me that you can't judge a book by its cover, that, everybody's different. And anyhow, there's a lot of folks, covered in tattoos or whatever that are just, humble souls, and we can't, overlook or, prejudge anybody.
You never know, you never know who God is going to put in front of you. And some people, they think they got it all covered. They're, and they don't want to stop because they've got their world all set up and others don't. And if you look in scripture, I don't know, Brian, it's kind of the same way. When Jesus is out there talking, the ones that come with a humble heart are the ones that are wounded, the ones that need help. And some of the Pharisees, I think they had it all together. They just, they didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what comes to my mind is the truth that this is something that everybody's invited to. But I mean, Jesus did say that money would be, a great hindrance. That the rich is going to, how difficult it's going to be for them. For the camel, it's easier for the camel to go under the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. And Steve, your experiences relates directly with my own, because I actually started doing this in downtown Indianapolis, and got to know the homeless by name, and not to even say that any of them were perfect. And certainly they understood their weaknesses. They understood that even though they weren't perfect, they still had an openness and desire for God. And I think that's what you're trying to say, is there's an openness that those people who actually live on the street, or may be more down in a place in their life where they don't have a lot, where they're ready to receive what God has for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I do. I mean, over the years, I've gone from doing the street evangelization with the table for a couple hours on Saturday morning, usually like 10 to 12, 9 to 11, 9 to noon. Over the years, that's transitioned to, doing the St. Paul Street evangelization, or the evangelization in other areas and other ways. So it's kind of morphed into, I have a homeless evangelization ministry that I do. The most of that is, it involves feeding the homeless, but also I bring materials out to the homeless on Sunday mornings in downtown San Diego, where there's a large homeless population, and also jail ministry, as well as hospital ministry. And there certainly there's a much greater openness amongst those. Especially the homeless and those in jail, but also in the hospital. Anytime when someone recognizes their need, and of course, most people in the hospital recognize that they're down and in need, but I find that certainly especially in the jail ministry as well as the homeless ministry, that there's a lot more openness and humility, and I'll just as a case in point, in the Sunday mornings when I go down with the homeless, I'm not usually down there that long. It's only maybe half an hour. But in half an hour with the homeless on Sunday mornings, I'll distribute more rosaries, rosary pamphlets, miraculous medals, crucifixes, chains, prayer cards, in half an hour than I might do in 4 hours, in normal, on the street with a table evangelization, because it's just so much more openness, amongst the homeless.
When you're serving the homeless, are you setting out a table with evangelization, or is it as they come up for other things and you say, well, here, would you also like a rosary?
Yeah, it's the latter.
Okay.
So there's one of my friends has a homeless ministry, and he feeds about 600 meals in 2 different locations on Sunday mornings between about 8:30 and about 10 a.m. And these are near the Petco Park, which is the San Diego Padres baseball stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so the homeless line up for his ministry. And so what I do is I will go to one or both locations where the homeless are all lined up, and just walk down the line and ask them if they, if they want any of the items, if they need prayer, just kind of find out what their needs are. And it's amazing how many want. A lot of them are not Catholic either, and right. They are very happy to take a rosary. And so I give them a rosary pamphlet, and anyhow, try to have conversations where I can. It's pretty humbling, to kind of observe that.
That's beautiful. We've had a couple other teams that work like a soup kitchen and that sort of thing. And people come for the food, for the body, and we give them the food for the soul, right? And pray with them and listen to their stories. And we do, healing prayer and everything. I think that's a great way to minister to folks and to evangelize.
Yeah, I think even when Beth and I talk to people who want to start teams and discerning where they can begin, it's actually some of the things that we encourage them to discern is like, is there already a ministry that maybe you could even just bolster with evangelization, such as a soup kitchen, and just, inviting the people who are already coming to be able to actually come to know the Lord too, because that's with the gospel and that's with the spirit in which we're going out in. It's God's asking us to take care of you, but he's also asking us to bring you into his church and bring you into relationship with him. And that's even a greater thing that we can offer, although we don't want to, even scripture says, like, we don't just feed them spiritually. It is important that we need to be able to feed them physically. It is important as a church, we recognize people's needs and we answer them any way we can, but also to do it in the spirit of the gospel.
Steve, I'd like to go back to something you said back in a while back. You said something like you and your partner, right? You and James went out for a year, almost every Saturday before things started, before you started going out to other places and building up other teams. I think that's just the virtue of patience and tenacity, sticking with it, because it is kind of a slow start when you're building teams. If you started the two of you for a year and now you have, there's 5 or 6 or even more. I don't know how you count all the different teams that are in your area, but it did start out slow and you have to allow it to grow naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely started slow, and I started thinking of ways, what are some easy, kind of free ways to, invite other people to join us. And so, James and I, with James's connections at Catholic Answers and also Catholic Radio, my connections with the Catholic Radio, we started telling people about St. Paul Street evangelization. And so, kind of word of mouth started to spread. We also, the San Diego Diocese has a monthly newspaper, a Catholic newspaper, and they allowed us to have some free, like a little blurb in there, and kind of an end of the newspaper where they talk about different ministries. And St. Paul Street Evangelization is one of those ministries. So we get some people that see that and then contact us through that. We, now we have for the Catholic Answers annual conference here in San Diego. The Catholic St. Paul Street Evangelization has a table for that. So a lot of people get to know St. Paul Street Evangelization through that. And a lot of those people are local and we get their emails and phone numbers, and that helps us grow. We just did the San Diego Walk for Life. We had, tons of people come up to our table for the San Diego Walk for Life and join our email list. And, so just things like that. And we have a weekly email blast that goes out. Monday morning, I send an email to all the team leaders that have just kind of, developed over the years, and send an email to them and also text one or more of them and find out, where they're going to be this weekend. Some can go out, some can't go out, but they get back to me before Wednesday. Then every Wednesday I send out the e-blast and we have probably close to 250 or more people on our email list, and they know where we're going to be, when we're going to be there. And we just invite people to come out, eventually people see that email and they will come out. We also do evangelization training. We've had, one of the co-founders of St. Paul Street Evangelization, Adam Janke, come out and do evangelization training. He's coming out again at the end of April, and we'll promote that in a very active parish, St. Patrick's in Carlsbad, as well as through the diocese. They've agreed to promote that, and so we'll have a good turnout for that. And we're just kind of growing it slowly. And I was mentioning to Beth and I were talking offline, and one of the challenges we had is we had a wonderful group of young evangelists, men that were probably like early mid-20s. And they were going out every weekend, and they were promoting things at the church, doing street evangelization, doing the Benedictus is like a Catholic men's breakfast. And but what happened to them is they developed girlfriends, and then which then became wives, and then started having children. And so anybody that of course gets married and has children knows that family starts to take more and more time. And so some of those team leaders, aren't going out as much as they probably would like to or could. go out in the past, but we've developed other team leaders, since then. And so like we have a number of seniors that are team leaders, folks that are in their, late 60s, early 70s, and some of them are just totally on fire, and they're going out. I mean, there's some of our most active team leaders, and they're going out,
Wow.
in the pier areas, by the beaches, almost every week, and also helping with like this evangelization training we're going to be doing at St. Patrick's and at the end of April. So it's wonderful, to see people of all ages interested in this, and and just seeing how on fire people of all ages are getting about doing the St. Paul evangelization.
That is
Yeah.
very cool. See, I mean, as the director of teams, I get to talk to all the people around the country who want to start teams. And I have talked to a few young families who say that they want to do this themselves, like a husband and wife saying, you know what, we just got married or we were recently married and we do have a kid, but we think this is something that we still can do. And I guess I myself am going to be married in the next few months. And I guess imagine my fiance and future wife and I, and then my baby who doesn't cry and changes his own diaper, will be able to come out there with us.
Right.
And, we're going to be out there for hours and, the baby's just going to be giggling and laughing and nothing's going to go wrong. And it's just going to be very easy. Now, I guess I don't know what it's going to look like practically for myself yet, but I still hope that maybe it would be possible. And I think even kids as they grow older, even 5 and 6 year olds, when they go out, we've had, parents bring their young kids.
We've had families. Yeah. Yeah.
And they've had great experiences too.
I love, Steve, how you're talking about it's almost like this life cycle. It started out slow. It started to build. You found ways to, for lack of a better term, recruit other evangelists, both by them seeing you on the street, but also going to local Catholic events. Now, the Catholic Answers Conference obviously is a huge one, but almost every diocese has some kind of conference or festival, and setting up there or setting up at the March for Life, San Diego, places where you're going to see other Catholics and just inviting them into onto your email list and gathering those names that way. But you also told me, I don't know if you said it, if it was offline or not, but you said you also you gather everyone together on a regular basis as they can come. To build up that community. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're meeting about once a quarter now, and we what we'll do is we'll start with a mass, and so lately we've a lot of our people are in northern San Diego County, and so we'll go to St. Patrick's. We've been going to St. Patrick's for morning mass, and then that starts at I believe it's 8 a.m. and then what I usually do is before the mass I'll go get some coffee. Get some, I'll go to Costco and pick up some muffins, some fruit, things like that for breakfast. And then St. Patrick's has allowed us to meet in their parish hall after Mass, and we'll just get together, and we'll, just kind of everybody gets a chance to talk about what's going on and, kind of the, where, the good things that are going on, what are some of their challenges. And we just gotta have a little powwow and just kind of discuss, kind of what everybody's doing, what their needs are. Try to if people's got questions or issues, try to address them, and then just come up with with new ideas. And so like out of our last meeting, the idea of doing another evangelization training, came up, and so that sprung up, and so we're going to have. St. Paul Street Evangelization, Adam, one of the co-founders, come out at the end of April and provide that training at St. Patrick's in Carlsbad. So, it's a great idea.
Are there any common threads in terms of the challenges that come up during those meetings?
I think the challenges are just kind of more. They're not so much. Relating to evangelization, I think they're more like, someone needs materials, and so we'll arrange to get someone, who needs more materials, get those materials to them. One of our team leaders, Reggie, who happens to work at my building downtown, he contacted me and he needed some more materials, some more rosaries, miraculous medals, chains, some pamphlet holders, things like that. And so he actually came over to my office yesterday and got those. And also he was looking for the signs that St. Paul Street Evangelization offers. He was looking for a sign as well, and so I showed him what I had. And so we're usually the problems are more of that nature. They're not they're not really related to theology issues or evangelization. It's just kind of more like practical items.
Yeah. Well, how great that you took on that role to be there for those team leaders. And I think that even gives them removing those roadblocks that prevents them from getting on the street. I need materials, I need training. There's these roadblocks that might prevent, the community from spreading. And you're like, nope, we're going to clear those and we're going to continue to move forward. And we're going to make this a community that people can get on the street without those.
Yeah. Community is so important. And I know you guys are, want to emphasize that. And I can't emphasize it enough. I mean, we have a St. Paul evangelization community here in San Diego, and we have a lot of people that feel a part of it. And, another thing that sprung out of that recent quarterly meeting was the, prayer intentions, so the groups are starting to relay the prayer intentions they're getting when they go out to me. And, the majority of our people on our email list, are not able to come out every week, maybe occasionally, but they can always pray for the intentions that we get every week. And so, we're trying to send out prayer intentions with our weekly email blast. And so those folks that, that can't come out, at least they can pray for, the folks that need prayer and pray for the group, the St. Paul evangelization groups. That's a whole nother area of the evangelization ministry. So that's something else that, an idea that came out of one of these, quarterly meetings.
That's great. Because I'm thinking of some of the folks that were evangelizing actively, but then something happened in their life circumstance. They can't come out some more. They're still on the list. They still see what's going on. They can pray. They can be a part of it in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is great. I mean, Steve, thanks for being on with us today and just kind of sharing about this movement that's happened in San Diego and just encouraging other people wherever they are to, even if they're a lone evangelist or just with two, to be open to the Spirit and being open to continue to reach out, and the fact that they can build community. And what I'm going to do is actually leave their email. So if anyone in San Diego wants to get involved, or if maybe someone wants to reach out to get on your email list or hear about best practices for what you're doing, they can get in contact with you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's crucial to build community, get more people involved. I mean, certainly, if you can have another person go out, of course, Jesus has his disciples go out by twos, by pairs. And, I think it's a great way to go out, doing the St. Paul Street evangelization. And, the more community we can build, I mean, we could be meeting with our parish priests and asking them, if they, who do you think would be a good person to participate in this? And, and I'm sure they will have some ideas on who the more active, a lot of it you can just observe who the more active people are in the parishes. And, there's just a lot of ways to, try to grow the community, the local St. Paul Street Evangelization community. Like we talked about before, being at, wherever there's Catholic events, whether it's a chicken dinner, because we've done this also up in northwestern Michigan, where it's it's pretty rural, and growing community in that area. And so in that area they have chicken dinners at the different churches in the summertime, and the different everybody tries to support the chicken dinner of the weekend. And if you have an evangelization St. Paul Street evangelization table, there you're going to be meeting Catholics from all over the general area, the diocese, and the kind of a more rural area. And you can be, growing community that way. So there's a lot of ways to grow community. I mean, we're very fortunate here in San Diego in that we can do this year round pretty easily because of the weather. And we have these areas, like, yeah, no polar vortexes in San Diego. And we, so we can, the piers are a wonderful place where, people go out to the piers and they go out and look at the ocean, and it puts them in kind of a nice frame of mind, anyhow, because, God is kind of present there in nature. And so that kind of makes them a little bit more open when they're out there amongst that beauty. And then there's just so many people, by the pier areas and in Southern California that tends to be a good area. But any place where there's a high foot traffic, is a good area.
Yeah, I like places like a pier or a park where people aren't rushing from here to there. They're already a little bit more leisurely. They work out good. It doesn't sound like it's a tremendous amount of work for you to coordinate things. You said you do a weekly email to team leaders at the beginning of the week, and then an email blast to your all of your participants, Wednesday, and then quarterly you just all meet for mass. Just those three things that you're doing, I think that just would be it's so good to building community. And it doesn't take a tremendous amount of work, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, I just have, as I'm getting older and my memory is starting to fade more and more, I rely so much on, calendar reminders and in Microsoft Outlook, in my case. Yeah. And so I have a calendar reminder for Monday mornings to reach out to the team leaders. And so I send out that email and or text to the team leaders on Monday. And then on Wednesday, I have my weekly reminder, my calendar to send out my e-blast to everybody in our, that's on our email list on where we're going to be that weekend, as well as prayer requests or other things, like if we're going to be at, for example, the Catholic Answers Conference, I'll let people know that. If we're going to be at the Walk for Life, I'll remind people of the San Diego Walk for Life and that we're going to be there and to please stop by and visit us. And so, that's, we do that. And then same thing with the quarterly reminders, once a quarter to contact everybody about when would be a good, and we do it Saturday mornings, good Saturday morning to meet, and go to mass and then do and have a meeting afterwards. And these meetings are not long, at most are like an hour long after the mass on Saturday morning. And then after that, we actually go out and evangelize. So most of the people that come to those quarterly meetings will go out to the Oceanside Pier, which is near Carlsbad and St. Patrick's. And we'll go out and do that and evangelize together. I mean, most of us make it for that for at least a little while. So
that's great.
It's just building community and just, running ideas past each other and just, supporting each other. And, and it's we've been really blessed so far.
I'm looking at your list here and kind of want to give a shout out to the team leaders that work so closely with you as Reggie and Joseph and Mike and Jenny and Christine and Val and Jordan, right? Those guys, those are the main ones that are working with you. And then all And Michael also, Michael's he's moved up to Temecula, and Michael's one of these young, vibrant evangelists I was talking about who got married, and then I think now has maybe 3 children. And so, anybody with family knows how busy family can be. But he's trying to get out where he can, and he's more kind of northeast, so he's not really that close to the ocean. And so he'll go out to parks, like you mentioned earlier, Beth. It's a great place to go, and he'll go out on like some of the more local parks and evangelize there, where he can. That's great. That's great.
Steve, thanks again for being on with us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Anytime.
And I love the fact that you encouraged so many, went from 2 to 250 on your list. That's just slow, steady growth through the Holy Spirit working in and through you and the good work of all those in your group.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, praise be to God, and I think we could grow it a lot more. I think, so we'll see how that list grows over the years.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of St. Paul Street evangelization, where we train, equip, and mobilize ordinary Catholics to do the extraordinary work of evangelization, all in order to save souls.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.